both pilots.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and yesterday was the first real new comic book day that we've had in, like 7 weeks. We talked about it here on the channel already, but there are a lot of things that we're kind of sorting out right now. And the big one is, what is the new comic book market and what are the new obstacles or the new things that we're going to be seeing as we move into this? And here to talk with me about that is my good friend Perch. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for talking to me. It's something that's definitely on my mind as I work to open up my own shop again.
Yeah. So the first thing that obviously that we're all noticing, it's affecting, obviously retailers, customers, is a scaled down line, especially from Marvel early on and DC to a different degree. Now, I do agree with this move on some aspects, but it almost feels like a catch-22. Like if you're a shop owner in California, you haven't been able to open your doors in 2 months now, and there's not really any new comics to sell, but your rent is still the same amount. It almost like they almost need to make a lot of money fast just to get capital back in the business, don't they?
They do. And this was why I think the approach DC took was better. With Marvel, we really don't have the big books until late July and then August, and then they all kind of come at once. So you almost have two problems there. They're slow in coming, and then you have this big 3 weeks worth of a lot that's going to be tough for shops to consume and readers. I think if you're going to do a scaled down line, which I think is smart for volume, you should have put front loaded some of those big sellers, get people into your shop. A lot of people, and I think Marvel was kind of thinking, if people are going to go to the shop every week regardless. And so we could ease into it. It won't matter. They'll buy some stuff. Maybe they'll pick up some stuff they don't really need or want because they're just excited to see comics again. But what's more likely to happen is customers are going to look at it and say, well, there's not really anything this week or next week I was really interested in, so I'll just wait till week 3 to pick it up. It will still be on the shelf, no problem. And that's not great.
Yeah, that's very, very problematic, especially, like I said, if you have a shop in California, New York, Massachusetts, even, in the Midwest, you still have rent to pay. So right. I think that's going to be one of the obstacles for retailers to overcome. But, there's obviously going to be some obstacles for customers to overcome that retailers are going to have to deal with and kind of help them through it. And one of them is going to be that mental game, that psychological barrier that makes people maybe not want to go into a crowded place. How do you think retailers are going to be able to attack that problem?
Well, I mean, first off, they're going to have to de-emphasize the new comic book day for a while, or at least figure out how to, not have everyone come in at once. In many comic shops, Wednesday is a very, very crowded day, Thursday a little bit, and then Friday much less. You definitely see a difference. Monday and Tuesday have been in the past fairly empty in a lot of comic shops. So you got to figure out a way to spread that stuff out and make sure that customers feel confident their comics are still going to be there and they don't have to come in on day one of them being released. I think this is something they're going to have to worry about anyway, given the fact that DC, depending on where you're getting your comics from, DC will go Tuesday, Marvel will go Wednesday. They're going to come at different times, different days. You have to just spread your stock out and really emphasize the idea that pull boxes are a thing. They're safer. They're happier and easier for customers to just get what they want, and try and promote that a little bit more than they have in the past.
Do you think retailers are going to have to think about some of the some of the measures that they took during COVID when they were shut down, like maybe having customers come in by appointment and other things like that to help drive the traffic and manage it?
Yeah, depending on what state you're in, for sure. I mean, there's restrictions in some states where you have to have the plastic shield between yourself and the register, which is going to be very foreign to a lot of comic shops of just that entire concept. And comic shops in general, I mean, it's a physical product with a lot of it on the shelf. This idea that some states are issuing guidelines that you have to disinfect your stock. Well, that's not going to work for comics. You can't spray them down. So how you're going to manage that's going to be very tricky. It's not going to work the same as it has for other retail shops or even gyms or grocery stores and other things. The by appointment is going to be a big deal. The limiting the amount of people coming into the shop is going to be a big deal. Or more likely than not, you're going to see a lot of comic shops just say, you know what, we're going to take a chance that we're going to get fined at some point by the police and just operate the way we always have been.
So just speaking of some of the changes we know that happened, obviously DC brought in some new distributors. We're not sure exactly where that's going to go. I think we have to take a wait and see approach with that. But one thing that they did do that you just mentioned is New Comic Tuesday.
Right.
Perch, what is the right day for New Comic Day? Does it have to be Wednesday? Is Tuesday an option? Can it be every day of the week? You know, what would you prefer? And what do you think the consensus is among retailers, well, and even customers who probably are the most important people?
Well, I think most retailers would say Wednesday, or at least one day. I think retailers like that day. I think they like having everything on one day to manage and not have to deal with a lot of differences. Customers, on the other hand, I think are somewhat indifferent. I think they just want to know that when they come in on a specific day, the comics that they want are going to be there. So the challenge with having it on 2 days is customers are going to feel compelled that they have to go in twice if their comic shop doesn't order over a lot of stock. If you get a hot DC book, are you going to make a special trip on Tuesday and then another special trip on Wednesday if you have a hot Marvel book that you're worried is going to sell out? Just so I go back to it's shops are going to have to emphasize subscriptions and pull boxes and reservations and even if it's as simple as go onto our Twitter account and say I really want this issue quickly and we'll hold it back for you, just something. They're going to have to really think about that. On a personal level, I think the idea of a specific comic day is somewhat antiquated. And I think in some cases it holds comic shops back. It keeps them from evolving and changing and actually doing things to their business that they probably need to do. You need to be thinking about making money and driving traffic to your store every single day, not gear around one day. One day is similar to one distributor. It's too easy for faults to break, enter into that system. So I think comic shops are healthier if they think about mini days and they just get their mindset around that. But that's going to be a very hard transition for many.
Well, but it seems like it's going to be necessary because you don't want a shop that's only filled on one day because there are going to be people that are going to be scared to go in there. And I do think this is going to take years probably before the psychological effects kind of wear off of people.
I do. I do too. I mean, I think that, and it kind of what you're saying, I think by appointment, reservation of comics, these kinds of things, what this will do, smart comic shops are going to look at this and say, we need to have a interaction with our customers and a guest experience with our customers where they know what comics they want. We can recommend certain things to them. They can, from the convenience of wherever they are, in the shop, at home, school, on the bus, say, I want a comic. I can quickly get in touch with my comic shop. It will be held for me. It will be reserved, and maybe some other things I might like too. That kind of full service model, that moving up model, is what's going to be necessary.
It's definitely something that people should be looking into and thinking about. So have you talked to retailers? I know you're in a lot of the Facebook groups and stuff like that. Is there money in the industry right now to spend on these new comics? We know we got, Dark Knight's Death Metal coming up, Joker War coming up, 3 Jokers. Then we got 10 of Swords. Obviously, the back half of July is loaded up for Marvel with Empire and a lot of their Dawn of X titles coming back. Is there money to actually out there to order these books for people to come in and buy?
I think the general consensus is that most of the core comic buying audience, the collectors, were affected less by this problem, that they were kind of the safer middle class, if you will. And so the belief is that they're still out there. I think that the anecdotal number I keep seeing is 10 to 20% less purchasing from just across the board, that people are just going to buy a little bit less. Unfortunately, many comic shops run really close to the edge. So 20% is actually pretty damning of a number. If you suddenly are getting 20% less incoming, that's a problem. What I see, some retailers are starting to pick up on this, and I've been very worried about it, is I think comic shops were hurting already from acquiring new customers, from new people coming into the shop and wanting to just browse and get hooked and go to comics. And my belief is that's the audience that is gone, that is going to be extremely hard to get into a shop now. We're going to be doing a lot of purpose-driven shopping, both for health reasons and for financial. If you're not just going to just wander into a store and kind of window shop for a while and get attracted to comics. You're going to only go in there if you want comics. And the comic industry needs new customers. It needs new people coming in. And so if it's even harder to get those people in the door, that's a problem. And that's what I worry about.
So we don't have a lot of real hard facts about the new comic book market that we're going to be seeing, but we do have some indicators. The first big one is going to be Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo's Dark Knight's Death Metal. And Scott Snyder did come out and say that their orders were better than they could have expected. Obviously, before COVID-19, we would have expected number one, the first issue of Dark Knight's Death Metal to do 150 plus as far as first issue orders.
Yeah.
Do you think this is actually going to go over 100? I mean, that would be a huge number and a great sign for the market.
Yes and no. I think it will go over 100. I do. I think that people will order high on it, and I definitely think they will. But I think that that's kind of a misleading indicator. I think that death metal was going to sell well, and I think a lot of comic shops will jump on that knowing it's a safe seller, that everybody will want it, and DC's hyping it as you've got to have it. The bigger worry I have is kind of that second level. The comics that ship between 60,000 and 40,000, 60 and 20 maybe. That's the number that I think comic shops are going to order very low on. And so once we get past these very big hyped events, I mean, death metal's been in the making now for several years. And so, what happens after that's over? I think that's the big question mark I have for the health of the industry.
So do the detective comics or the action comics, Superman, your Daredevils, your Dawn of X titles that are all kind of hovering between 30 and 50, do they just fall off the map even though they were healthy sales before?
Right. That's I think the risk. I mean, you take a look at Superman Action Comics, both those books. They didn't have the biggest buzz going into this. They are not selling where they need to for a big core flagship DC character. What's it going to take to get them up? It's not going to be a Leviathan 2 storyline. So, I mean, that's the risk, I think. And that's where you will see, I believe, starting at the end of the year, early next year, even more consolidation. You may see DC starting to ask questions like, why do we have 2 Superman books? Why do we have 2 Batman books? We should make sure that all of our core books, Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, Flash, they're all selling at 80,000 to 100. That's where they need to be. And if we're not doing that, have 1, not 2.
So one of the things that we absolutely have seen, there's evidence for this, is Marvel is taking some of their low sellers, finishing them on digital. DC taking some of their low sellers, putting them on digital. Feels like they're both kind of trimming down the line, cutting some of the fat off. How long do we think this more streamlined publishing line is going to go forward for both of them? Do you think that it's all about making money from here on out rather than creating new characters or even fulfilling niche markets that aren't really, profitable at this moment?
Well, I think with DC, it's going to be about making money. And I think it's going to be about each one of their core flagship characters has to be front and center and doing well. And I think they're going to put all the emphasis there on that. So I think a lot of the lesser known characters, the experimental ideas, the Elseworld stuff, I think that goes to digital or just doesn't get commissioned in the first place. I think that's true. I think they're going to be very reserved with what they put out. Marvel, on the other hand, I think that they'll be back to quote unquote their normal within a year. I think they are going to continue to push through this strategy. They're very convinced, and they remain very convinced that a lot of these kind of new books, the cosmic ghost writers of the world, or Squirrel Girl or the Wasp or that kind of stuff, that there is a market for it. They just have to keep pounding at it until they get there, and I think they will. I think that they will be reluctant to. I think they'll put some things on digital, but I still don't see a coherent digital strategy for Marvel. I think they're going to slip those right back into the publishing schedule and crowd the shelves again.
Well, we definitely got to talk about digital, because DC is we knew that they repurposed a lot of the stuff from those DC giants, put them out on digital just to have new content out there during COVID-19. But it appears that they're not dropping the ball. We've got this new Deceased book that's digital only. We've heard the rumors about a black and white Batman book that's going to be digital only. Mm-hmm. Obviously, DC's putting a heavy emphasis on digital moving forward. They're saying, put your money where your mouth is. You say the reason that you're not buying digital is because the cover price is the same as the physical book. They're 99 cents. What's holding you back? Do you think it's going to be successful?
Yeah, I do. But I think it's going to take time. I think digital has 2 problems. One's price, which you mentioned, and I think DC is doing some good steps to address that. The other is just basic usability and accessibility. How are people going to find these books? Not everyone has a tablet, and reading on a smartphone is a painful experience in the West. So I think that's the next hurdle for DC to pass. Unfortunately,
also, if you don't read CBR or Newsarama or Screen Rant, you didn't even know the book existed.
Exactly. No, exactly. So they definitely have a get it problem of where do you find it, how do you know it's there, and what do you read it on problem. Unfortunately or fortunately, DC, and I think they realize this, the only way to beat this is to keep doing it. They need to just produce for the next year digital content, build up that library, build up that channel. That's what needs to happen, and they can't just expect the audience will show up on day one and then they start spending money. They're going to have to start spending it ahead of the crowd and build up that volume and build up the market, and they're doing that. And I think that's smart, and I hope they keep at it.
So, Perch, we're kind of winding down here. We covered a lot of the change that we've seen, some things that we just don't know what it's going to look like, but we can speculate on. Is there anything I missed that's like a big topic or something that people should be looking out for as far as consumer retailer issues in the market moving forward?
Well, I think, try and help your local comic shop adapt. That's the best thing you can do as a customer. Reserve things. That's the healthiest thing you can do for you and them, to just get your comics there. And I think, like you mentioned, and we should do a show on it, I keep your eye on digital. I think there's some good ideas that can be done. I think people need to stop thinking about digital as a replacement for physical comics. It's not. It's a separate market. So we should treat it that way and really figure out how does one complement the other. And we should look for how that's happening.
And definitely, if you went to your comic shop or you got service from your comic shop during COVID-19 and you liked an aspect of it, make sure that you're giving your comic shop feedback so that they know that is a service that people like. If they get enough of that, that'll key them in that this is something that they should pursue or maybe expand moving forward. We all have to work together and hopefully get over all this stuff as we start returning life back to normal.
Absolutely.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.